everybody, and today what I want to do here is kind of talk about how to find your perfect sensitivity in Valorant. Obviously, this can be kind of translated to any game realistically, but obviously I'm more comfortable with Valorant. I'm a Mortal 3 Valorant player. Um, Not right now because I'm dog shit, but I promise. A Mortal 3 peak. I've played in Tier 2 slash Tier 3 tournaments. I'm a collegiate Valorant player, and I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, basically. Um, what I want to talk about today is how to find your perfect sensitivity, which I think there's a lot of good methods, right? One of the main methods that you'll hear is like, what sensitivity can you do like a comfortable like 360 on? Right, like you should be able to swipe your mouse across your mouse pad and do a 360, right? Or something like that. Or like, what sensitivity can you comfortably do a 180 on? Things like that, right? Like, those are all like good and perfect and fine. But realistically, what I think is better is to pick a sensitivity that adapts to how you aim, right? So basically, I'm going to kind of show you the movements. I don't have like a webcam with me, but you're going to have to bear with me, right? So imagine like you're moving to the right. So one of the ways you can move to the right is with your fingers, right? This very like small movement. Basically, you're pressing in your thumb towards your mouse and it pulls your mouse towards this way, right? As well as you're shifting your fingers over towards the right. Another way is to use your wrist, right? Where I can quickly just snap a small micro adjustment of my wrist. The next thing is my arm, right? Where I'm moving like my arm, basically like slightly moving like my elbow is essentially the actuation point. And then the next point is your shoulder. You sort of like extend your shoulder outwards, right? I don't really use this too much, but I know some people aim with their shoulder a bit, right? But most of the time, what you're going to be focusing on is over towards your elbow, like this movement of like your forearm, right? Your wrist and your fingertips. And sometimes people don't use their fingertips, right? I use my fingertips like slowly just because I've been working on like using them more efficiently. And basically, what you'd use fingertips for, right, is like these really small, very precise movements, right? Like adjusting crosshair placement, doing small like flicks, things of that nature, right? What you'd use like your wrist for is like movements like this, right? Where you have to snap onto a target from like a medium distance. And then your arm is more used for like these wide flips that you have to do, right? Where your wrist won't give you the correct actuation, right? Because your arm has a wider range of motion, and basically it just goes down the list, right? The smaller the range of motion, the more precise the movement is. The wider, right, the range of motion, the less precise it is, right? So, for example, if you aim a lot with your arm, aka you're using your elbow a lot, right? Like my sensitivity, right? It's not necessarily like built for that, right? Like if I'm just flicking around, I'm obviously just flicking around, but for example, right? Like if I have to make this small micro correction and I'm using my arm, I'm more prone to just like over flicking or even under flicking because I'm trying not to over flick, things like that. Where if I'm using my fingertips, it's pretty much always directly on this target. There's really no variation of me over flicking or under flicking. It is just a direct, precise boom, boom, boom. Whereas if I'm using my arm, right, like I'm naturally over flicking because it's not what my arm is used for, right? So if you're using your arm, you'd want to kind of lower your sensitivity, right? You're gonna play on like a Demon One style of sense where you play very slow, right? Now, this arm movement for like these micro adjustments. Holy hell, it feels weird. I'm not like over flicking or not under flicking. It's a lot easier to control, right? And then the opposite kind of lends its case, right? If you use like your fingertips and stuff, I'll go back to the low sensitivity, right? I'm using my fingertips and stuff. This feels fucking horrible. Like it just, I feel fat as shit, right? If I use my wrist a lot, right? Like if I'm only using my wrist, this feels horrible. It feels like I'm using a brick for my mouse, even though I'm using a G Pro. So, what I would recommend everyone doing, right, is play like a deathmatch, go into the range, and literally don't even think about how you aim, just do it, right? Just naturally, like, what comes to you, how do you aim, go around, shoot the bots, record it, and see how you're aiming, right? If you aim more towards, like, your wrist, you're going to want to use, like, a medium sensitivity, right? if you notice that you're using like your arm, your wrist, and your fingertips, you can kind of do really any sensitivity in there. But realistically, if you use your wrists and your fingertips, you're gonna want to have more towards a medium sense, right? So kind of like the spectrum here is I'm on 1600. So a slow sense would be like 0.1, medium sense would be like 0.5, and then a slightly higher sense would be kind of where I'm at, which is like towards like 2, right? I play 1.89, well 0.189. Um, to find that, and that's really how you're going to understand like your sweet spot of like what sensitivity is going to work for you. But obviously, if you guys are like, hey, I only aim with my arm, but I really like this idea of being able to aim with my wrist and aim with my fingertips, honestly, what you would want to do is still like use a sensitivity that would work for wrist and fingertips and just go into like aim trainers or just like the range even. Like you don't have to use aim trainers and just focus on that, right? Like instead of just leaving your aim to be like a subconscious thing, which is most of the time what it's going to be when you're playing a game at a high level, actively focus on, because right now I'm only really using my fingertips, right? Fingertip, 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 fingertip. A little bit of wrist movement to transfer over to the target, but my micro adjustments are all with my fingertips. So that's really like the easiest guide. I know it sounds pretty simple, but trust me, finding your sensitivity is a very simple thing. It doesn't need to be super complex. You don't have to use all of these aim training tools and stuff like that. You really just have to know how you aim and then adjust your sensitivity to fit those needs. So remember, if you use your arm, go slow. If you use everything, kind of go towards medium or high, whichever. If you use like mainly just like your wrists and your fingertips, you might want to switch to a faster sensitivity. So I hope you guys enjoy. Please leave a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And have a wonderful day.